I, Carla, 30 years old, 6 months pregnant with mine and my husband's, Harry, 31, first child. During this pregnancy, I've been very exhausted every day and would usually come home from work and go to bed an hour later. Then I'd wake up at midnight and reheat what Harry had made us for dinner. For context, I've been part of a huge work project that's been going on for months, and I've been extremely overworked. On top of this, my husband doesn't have a job at this moment and isn't looking for one unless I remind him. I've been working overtime to get as much money as I can before maternity leave. Our anniversary was on the 6th of August, and I'd asked him if we could have a romantic dinner at home and then snuggle up to watch TV under a warm blanket. I thought it was a wonderful idea since I was too tired to go out, and because I knew that Harry was doing most, if not all, of the household chores. However, he seemed a little annoyed when he agreed, but I thought nothing of it. The next morning, Harry seemed quite cold towards me and barely looked me in the eyes. Once I got home from work, he wasn't there, but that was normal since he could have been out with friends or at an interview, and so I went to sleep. I woke up at 11 that night to see that I was still alone in the house, so I checked my phone. I had about 8 missed calls from Harry and a long text. I'm summarizing, but the text read, "I understand how tired you are because of this pregnancy and you having to work extra hours most days, but I'm over being ignored every day and having a 5-minute conversation with you every so often. You expect me to do all the housework and plan our boring anniversary alone. I'm really annoyed, so I'm staying at a friend's tonight. Text me when you see this." Of course, I called him and texted him about being sorry and wanting to talk, but I never got an answer. In the morning, I called my boss about having a day off and spent most of it waiting for Harry and planning my apology. However, when he came home, he silently handed me a rose and a card saying that he loves me but needs a few days away from me to figure out what he's going to say. Then, those days became a week. This part happened on the 13th, 8 days later. I messaged him every day, and he would constantly say that he needed one more day or just another night at his friend's to figure this all out. But on the 13th, I decided to go to the friend's home he was staying at to confront him. So I drove over, nearly 30 minutes away, and banged on the door so hard that I could hear it echo from inside. By this point, I'd realized that I should have put more effort into our relationship, but he also should have talked to me about this instead of running away. Harry's friend came to the door and was confused but pleased to see me. He seemed a little on edge as I talked to him, and he had to break the silence every so often with comments about my pregnancy and how he couldn't wait to meet the baby. Finally, we stopped talking and I practically demanded to see Harry, saying that I wanted to apologize, but also explain how childish he was by hiding from me. The thing that I found absolutely hilarious, but actually not at all, was that his friend said that Harry wasn't there and had left for Ireland on the 9th. Ireland. To say I was absolutely beyond furious and extremely confused would be such an understatement. His friend invited me in and sat me down to talk. Turns out that Harry had told his friend of our problems and had come up with the solution of going on a holiday as a couple to sort everything out and learn to love each other again, in Harry's words. So of course, his friend thought that was a lovely idea and helped him to book the flight on the evening of the 5th, the first time he had stayed at his friend's house. Since it was a last-minute booking, Harry's friend had stayed up with him for quite a while before they found a flight who was taking a few more passengers due to canceled tickets. His friend then explained how he'd been confused when I arrived at the door, but didn't want to say anything about the holiday in case it had ended early due to us arguing. Harry's return ticket is booked for the 20th of August. I am just so angry and quite heartbroken, to be completely honest. I messaged him the moment his friend had finished talking, and Harry only responded an hour ago with nothing more than a "had to figure things out. Sorry." So now I'm home alone again and trying to figure out what I'm going to say when he gets home. Anyway, thanks for reading about how my life is going. I'm from the UK, so Ireland isn't as far as people think it is since I'm not American. But it still is. So far. Other side note. A question that keeps repeating is, Where did he get the money from without you noticing? So I'll leave my explanation from the comments here. He has a bank account with his money from when he worked as a teenager and a little into his 20s before we met. And a few years ago, we agreed not to touch that money and add to it every so often. It was a backup savings account, so I'm assuming that he took the money from there since it wasn't from the joint account. I've had time to think a little. Here's another note. 6 hours later. I appreciate the hard truths, empathy, or advice given to me, but I am not divorcing him, changing the locks, calling a lawyer, or anything like that. Top comments. Somebody said, am I missing something? So you, at 6 months pregnant, are busting your arse, working long hours to save for your maternity leave and support your unemployed, unmotivated husband. You are so exhausted, you fall asleep an hour after you get home, from exhaustion, not from just wanting to ignore him from what you said. In response, he takes money from the saving account you both contributed to and goes on a holiday to Ireland. And you are the one expected to apologize to him? You are the one that deserves the apology. Another commenter. So you're 6 months pregnant, working overtime while your stinky boyfriend is unemployed, and instead of being a big boy and communicating with you, he quite literally hops to another country. I'm so sorry, girl, this is awful, and you deserve someone better. Why isn't he scrambling to find a job to support his overworked and pregnant wife? And then drops money on 2 tickets to Ireland. By the way, who the hell is in Ireland with him? I don't think you did anything wrong. I'm sure you're exhausted. He could have just brought it up to you and worked something out together. So immature. Someone said, if I were you, I would literally not care one iota who he was with. It will be over for me. One commenter said this. Her husband abandoned her at 6 months pregnant because he wasn't getting attention and resented that his pregnant wife was exhausted. And he leaves the country without telling her? What the hell is he 5? What if she had a medical emergency? I'm guessing he's going to be jealous of his kid once they are born because his wife will be busy caring for an infant and not catering to his needs. An original poster is actually blaming herself because of her jerk of a husband's behavior. Small update. 2 days later, it's the 17th now. I've had a longer thought. I'm not deciding anything until our talk, but I definitely won't be staying in my home with him after this. I can't trust him not to run away again. I'll talk more about this on my actual update, but I've gained some self-respect and realized he's being an a-hole. I talked to my mom, and she's happy for me to move in with her on the 21st, and I'm free to stay for as long as I need to. So, I'm going to post an update just to clear the air when I can, hopefully the day after Harry is home. 20th, 21st? And then delete this all a day or two later, or I'll forget to. Relevant comments. Somebody said, your husband is having an affair and off with his side chick. Because you are pregnant and working, it would be character self-end for him to leave you right now. So he will find a way to blame you for everything. Tell all your mutual friends about how horrible you treat him so they will feel sorry for him. Then when he finally either leaves or drives you to leave him, he will come out as the victim. And your circle of friends and family will blame you for destroying the family. You need to lawyer up now. You need to find out what your rights are before he tries to get spousal support and custody. If he has credit cards in your name, freeze your credit and cut off the cards. Move half the money from joint accounts to your account. I am sorry this is happening to you, but now is not the time to be running off emotion. Somebody said, go back to his friend's house and ask about which email the itinerary went to, or if you have access to his email. Take a look. I'm sorry, but his friend is possibly lying for him since he said he helped him book the tickets. You have to put in a name and details for each ticket. As far as I am aware, you can't just have a +1 for a flight. They have to be named, and getting the name on the ticket changed is not an easy process. Typically, they give a credit, but only in the original ticket holder's name. So either you have a flight credit hanging out somewhere, or he didn't put your name on the ticket. Of course, that is if the friend isn't covering for him. And yes, I have the old Reddit suspicion that he is cheating. He realized that his gravy train ride was over and is likely jumping on another. Even if he isn't, you have to really examine his reactions. This sounds like a person that will be a crappy dad. He can't even be a good partner. What makes you think he could be a good parent? Lawyer up. Freeze assets. Gather whatever evidence you can of his behavior and refusal to find a job. Do it before he can withdraw everything and bolt. You're protecting yourself and your child's future. You only get support if he has a job, so you need to retain as much savings as possible. Sounds like you're going to need it. Update post. 6 days later. I want to start this out by saying that a lot of questions have been answered since Harry came home yesterday evening. The main one being that he did use the second ticket, but for his sister. For the last few days, Harry's friend has been living with me and helping me through this. One way was that he scheduled a couples and individual counselor for Harry and I. I have also been calling my mum every day since the 13th, and with the one counseling session, Harry's friend, and my mum all giving me the same advice, I scheduled an early maternity leave with a slight bonus to each paycheck because of all my overtime and unpaid help. I officially leave work in 4 days. Back to yesterday, Harry's friend went to pick Harry up and sent me photos of who he was with as reassurance that it was his sister, Tiff, not her real name. When they arrived, I'd prepared dinner and cleaned the downstairs of our home so that we could have a civilized conversation without hunger or distractions to stop us. Harry looked extremely tired, and he seemed to be on the verge of crying the moment I opened the door to them all. I was incredibly patient for the sole reason of being able to get through this discussion in one piece, and so when Harry wouldn't speak, I let Tiff explain why she had gone with him. Tiff is a lovely lady who helped me through the few months before my pregnancy. However, Harry didn't stay in close contact with her, and I lost touch when the work project started. Because of this, she had no clue about anything going on until Harry called her and said that he had a spare ticket to Ireland. At first, she was reluctant since she knew that I was pregnant, and so she tried to ask why he would leave and if I was with someone who could care for me. Eventually, Harry snapped and told her the real reason of why he was going away, and so she joined him to make sure that he knew it was wrong, but also to help him through all the emotions that he was feeling. She was the reason that Harry came back to me. If she hadn't gone with him, then Harry admitted that he might have moved to central London or a small village in the countryside to hide from this. It took everything in me not to cry when she admitted that, and I could clearly see the shame on Harry's face. I'm not going to recite everything word for word, and so I'll quickly clear up some things. 1. Harry did use the backup savings account, like I thought, to pay for the tickets. 2. The reason that Harry's friend didn't see who the other ticket was for was because once they had found the tickets, Harry's friend went to bed. 3. Tiff was by Harry's side the entire holiday in Ireland and confirmed without a doubt that this wasn't to find a fling. They spent most of the days in the cheapest hotel room possible in silence before Harry started talking about everything. 4. When we met and married, Harry was a loving, hard-working, job-having man whose only dream was to have a wonderful family and then retire to one of those cute stone villages in the south of England. After an hour, Harry finally spoke up. Tiff and Harry's friend went into the living room, but I never realized how strange it would feel to be with Harry again. He confessed that he'd stopped loving me a month into my pregnancy. It wasn't to do with the fact that I was sick all the time, dirty as a mole, or wouldn't stop talking about the baby. He just didn't have a reason. Since he couldn't think of why he stopped loving me, he assumed that the love would come back in no time, that maybe it was some delusion caused by the stress of a baby on the way. Over time, that love didn't come back, and he started feeling incredibly guilty and alone in it all, which is when he got fired from his job. He told me it was because his work performance was belittled by new management, but it was really because he was too trapped in his feelings to think of anything but how much he still didn't love me. Then, he never tried to get a job, because sitting at home without me, since I had to work more, was much better than sitting at work and possibly getting fired again. He came to love how he had alone time until the moment that he felt alone. That was when he refused to work just so he wouldn't have to see me. He wanted to sit and wait and see how long it would be before I came to him. The trip was to test the waters. It was to see if life would be better without me. He still hasn't decided. In his whole explanation, he kept emphasizing how he didn't love me and said it like I was a child who needed to hear something 1,000 times just to understand it. He never apologized. In a rough way, I was shocked, distraught. If you have a word to describe that awful emotion, then I felt it. I cried, I shouted, I cried again, and we sat in silence until I could talk. Then I told him how I could never trust him again. How could I possibly trust him not to walk out on me or the baby? How could I trust him to tell me these things, or explain his emotions, or to see the story from both sides? How could I possibly work myself dry again for an unloving husband? And so I made the decision for him. We would go to couples counseling, not to be a better couple, but just to understand each other and learn to communicate properly while together and to other people. No matter what, our lives would always involve each other because of the marriage and baby, and so we need to be able to talk. I've moved into my mom's home, and I'm free to stay for as long as I need to. My mom is helping me to make the spare room into a nursery and is being the most amazing, supportive, incredible mom anybody could be. Tiff and I are going to stay in closer contact, and Harry's ex-friend said that he can be the appointment driver and is going to be my second emergency contact. As for when I'm in labor, my mom will be with me, and Tiff and Harry's ex-friend will be waiting to meet the baby and to stop Harry from even seeing the delivery room. Finally, I made it clear to Harry that we will separate for now, but will divorce, and remain separated after the baby is born. I will make sure that he is not mentioned in my emergency contacts. He can't be trusted to show up or even where he says he is. I'm not going to update this anymore, since I have things to do and a baby to prepare for. Thank you for sticking around and reading this all. I'll respond to whatever comments I want to, but those are all I'll say after this. Relevant comments. Somebody said, some more details. Hi there, I just saw this. I didn't include a lot of nitty details in this because it is my last post on the matter, and I just wanted to clear the air. However, Harry had told Tiff that I had allowed him to go so he could think, so she didn't try to reach out. I suppose she wanted to give Harry and I space, or maybe she just forgot because her brother was upset and in a crisis or sorts. There are a lot of things to still talk about since we only talked for an evening. Also, Harry's friend is on my emergency contacts because he has been helping me through this, and if my mom can't get to me, he is the closest after her. Emergency contacts are about trust, but also location. Another commenter. How did an ex-friend become an ex-friend? In short, Harry lied to his friend, and then the friend learnt what Harry had told me. The friend doesn't want to be Harry's friend anymore. You may want to contact a lawyer about him not being a contact at the baby's school. I responded to someone else about this, in a rough way. I'm tired, and I realize that won't happen. I just want to know that Harry couldn't take the baby from nursery without me knowing, and then decide that he'd have a better life without us. What I mean is that, until he decides if he wants to be in our lives and gets any mental health support that he needs because of how he's been feeling/acting, then I want to know where our baby is at all times, someone said. Holy crap. You essentially set yourself on fire to keep things going, and he wallowed in a toxic pool of selfishness and contempt. It sounds like you'll have great support to move forwards from here. Good on you for setting firm boundaries and forging ahead with plans to care for yourself and your upcoming child. May your ex wind up with a wedgie and a paper cut every day for the rest of his life. One commenter also shared the same story. Wow, it's crazy. My friend went through this exact situation. She's very religious and resisted divorce, and when I tried to gently counsel her to consider it, she insisted that this wasn't like him. Turns out, she was right. His meds had stopped working. The reason he didn't believe he loved her was because his emotions had just turned off. He'd gone entirely numb, nearly lost his job, stopped caring about everything, etc. He had a rare moment of clarity and managed to get to a doctor who got him on a new antidepressant. Suddenly, he was interested in things, wanted to be married, etc. He loved her again. I'm not advising this, by the way. My friend put up with a whole lot of crap to get to that outcome, and I don't think many people would have. They're happy now, and I'm glad for her, but it was a long, difficult road. I bring this up not because I think you should change your mind regarding divorce, but because you are about to have a child with this guy. If he's perhaps going through a deep depression where he feels next to nothing, he will not be in a fit state to co-parent. He needs to get himself together so he can be there for the baby. If you guys end up in counseling, I hope that the counselor will address whatever is happening with Harry for the sake of your child. I'm sorry this has happened to you. Best of luck.